And welcome back to the Touchline Talk Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the content I put out every single week. It is Champions League time. Again, usually, especially with this show, it's designed to talk Champions League, but because of Manchester City, Arsenal did things in a different order today. Going back to Tuesday, your highest profile game of this first set in the round of 16. Bayern Munich go into Paris, get a 1-0 win, thanks to none other than former PSG player, Paris native, and Champions League final hero Kingsley Coman, who continues to haunt his former club. Kylian Mbappe comes off the bench in this game, and that's really where this needs to start. Because what you saw in the first half is the flaws of both of these teams. PSG, and even with Mbappe, this is still an issue, but it got highlighted without him on the field. There are times where that front three gets so disconnected and just kind of leaves everybody else out on an island to fend for themselves that they cannot get control of the ball. And that's what the first half was. Mbappe makes this even more difficult because not only can you not get control of the ball, but when you are facing a press, the best way to beat it is to go over the top. Neymar and Messi are not doing that. That's where Mbappe comes in. But you didn't have him in the first half. I have seen this happen in person from a team coached by Jesse Marsch when I went to a Leipzig PSG Champions League game. It looks at times, if they sort of can't get into a rhythm offensively and if they can't stay connected and move the ball from back to front, like they're trying to play a counterattacking system without having the personnel to play a counterattacking system. And it especially looked like, again, without Mbappe in this game. Or it looks like they're trying to play a counterattacking system when they really aren't, but Mbappe finds a way to bail them out and kind of create those opportunities on the break. And then on the Bayern side of this, they pinned PSG in for almost the entire 45 minutes and did nothing with the ball. Which is what you see when Bayern are dropping points in the Bundesliga, when they've had these stretches where they just can't seem to get wins. It's not a possession thing. It's not a wasted opportunities thing for the most part. Now, maybe they have a good look or two that don't go in for whatever reason. But it's that they just keep moving the ball around and don't actually pose any kind of real danger. And that was what you saw in the first half of this game. And then the second half happened and things got much more interesting. Bayern actually started creating chances, and yeah, Donnarumma needs to do better on that goal. There are plenty of times where he's just interesting to try and evaluate because obviously you saw what he could do. But there are also, it seems like a lot of times where you just want your goalkeeper to do better. And this was Coman's goal was certainly one of them. But Bayern did start creating real chances. And then Mbappe comes on. Definitely rusty. You could see from some of his first touches. But also he was Mbappe. You know, he gets the ball in the back of the net. You start getting offside flags and goals disallowed. PSG came about as close as you could to equalizing without actually equalizing. And so now they're going back to Bayern down a goal. Not the end of the world. But it's another reminder. It doesn't matter how talented your front three is, or your front two, or whatever. if you're not willing to do the little things. There is a reason PSG have failed time and time and time and time again in the Champions League. You cannot win this competition by purely being better than everybody else. These teams are too good. So I'm going to save some of that conversation if they actually get eliminated the round of 16. The other thing I want to mention in terms of the second leg, Nuno Mendes needs to get more involved. Because Bayern had all kinds of issues on the right side of that defense when Mbappe came on and you got Nuno Mendes overlapping. In terms of an outlet, when you're trying to play out of the back, your left wing back cannot be that outlet. But when you get him higher up the field and he turns into a winger, now all of a sudden you have two outlets. And they're two of the fastest players in the world. Bayern just could not deal with him. That's, if you're PSG, that's what you have to be looking to do. But that also involves having the ball and not allowing that press to discombobulate you the way it did. But that's also the way they're built. They have a front three that is just detached and generally disinterested when they don't have the ball. There's a price to pay for that no matter how good those players are. So we will see if PSG can turn this thing around in leg 2, but they go back to Germany trailing 1-0. Second game from Wednesday, Borussia Dortmund 1, Chelsea 0. I don't know how many more times I have to say this about Chelsea. It doesn't matter how many more players you bring in. There is a fundamental issue with this squad that bringing in more, center attacking midfielders and more wingers, some of whom have a track record of struggling with the exact same things this team struggles with, it's not solving the problem. This team is just simply bad at finishing. In no small part because there is no number 9 on the field. There is no player whose primary gift, job, skill, however you want to frame it, is finishing. Kai Havertz, Raheem Sterling, I talked about this when Sterling joined. Sterling doesn't solve the problem because Sterling is also generally a poor finisher. Now, we're going to have to see with Mikhail Mudryk. There's some hope there. He's a really good player. But the person who stole the show in this game for the amount of waste opportunities was João Felix, who is also not an out-and-out goal scorer. He is not a number 9. Look at where he thrived for Portugal in the World Cup. He is not built to be the guy in the end of all of these chances. He's hitting the crossbar, getting in really good positions. They should have scored 3 goals in this game. They scored none of them because, yes, they got a little bit unlucky, right? They hit the woodwork a few times, forced some good saves, but it's the same story because they haven't solved the problem. And then Karim Adeyemi takes a corner kick. Takes the ball from a corner kick, right? It gets headed out to him. He just goes down the field. Absolutely humiliates Enzo Fernandez. Then he gets by Arrizabalaga and just slides it into the net. Dortmund had about 2 good chances early in the game. They were kind of on top for first 20, 30 minutes or so. Then it was just all Chelsea, except for this one moment from Adeyemi. It was sensational. Every time you watch that guy, and I was texting with my friend who's a Dortmund fan when Dortmund bought him. It's not like I was watching a ton of Red Bull Salzburg, but whenever I did watch him in the Champions League, you could just tell that dude is different. And he showed you why in that one moment. And so Dortmund continued. I mean, was not a great performance. They should have lost by multiple goals. But you got your one moment in transition, and he cooked the most expensive player in Premier League history, finished the chance nicely, and now you've got a lead to hold on to against a team that struggles mightily to actually put the ball in the back of the net. And now you're going to start feeling the pressure, and now you get to play on the counter because Chelsea have to go for this in the second leg. Dortmund didn't deserve it, but that's the whole point about this with Chelsea. I keep saying this over and over and over. There are two different ways to evaluate it when teams don't, when the sort of the XG and the actual goals don't line up. Either you're incredibly unlucky, or it's an indication of a systemic issue where your players just are not finishing the chances they should. Sometimes, right, just weird things happen. But it's the same conversation with Brighton. From Graham Potter's, specifically from, earlier in Graham Potter's tenure. Brighton were outstanding. They created all kinds of chances. Couldn't finish them. The difference for Brighton now is that they are actually finishing chances at a much higher level with kind of this new group of players they brought in. That's why they're right up there trying to at least get the Europa League and push for a Champions League spot. It's not that they're creating more chances, they're just taking them. Similar story with Arsenal this season. When it happens time and time again, it's not an accident, it's not unlucky. It is that you're not finishing the way you should. And it's been an issue with Chelsea at least all of this season, I would argue even before that. Still hasn't been solved. No amount of money that doesn't actually address that problem is going to help all that much. The number 9 thing is a problem because none of these players are built or at their best when they are the ones tasked with putting all these chances, when the chances are supposed to fall to them. Christian Pulisic, Mason Mount can't be your best finishers. Pulisic can if Pulisic actually gets on the field, but that's not really happening. And Mount is not supposed to be the best finisher on his team, as good of a player as he is. And so here we are again, Dortmund, somehow, some way, shout out Kareem Adeyemi, 1-0 heading into the second leg. Third game, AC Milan get a 1-0 win over Tottenham. Brahim Diaz gets the goal. Fraser Forster makes 2 really good saves. Spurs just couldn't get the ball cleared. It kind of just kept moving toward the goal, kept bouncing around, and eventually, Forster did everything he could to keep that ball out, but eventually, credit to Diaz for his persistence. He gets the goal. Charlie de Ketelaere comes in, almost immediately has a really good chance to make it 2-0, but he can't capitalize. And if you're Antonio Conte, you got to be thrilled with this result. Your midfield is just not available to you through Bentancur's injury, Højbjerg's suspension. You stayed within a goal. They didn't create all that much. The problem, for better or worse, probably better, your weak spot, I would argue, was your attack. You need more from those guys, but those guys can give you more. And you're one goal. You're going to, get Højbjerg back. You're going to have a little bit more time to sort of figure out how you want to reorganize this midfield without Bentancur again. I very much see this as an opportunity missed for AC Milan to really put some pressure on Spurs. Just generally, you come away 1-0 in a world without away goals, headed back home. Generally, you feel good about that, right? Now, of course, you would rather have it be a draw so that all you need to do is any kind of win. But One goal at the end of the day, you'll take it. You should be expecting to win your home leg. If you don't win your home leg, that's where you're going to come up short, not because you lost on the road. And they didn't give up all that much. Now, right, like I said, this could have been 2-0 pretty easily. But it was not the onslaught of chances, for example, Chelsea had. They did a good job just kind of staying in the game, keeping things under control, making sure it didn't get away from them, making sure they didn't get overran. That emergency midfield deserves a lot of credit. Good performance. It's as good as you could have asked for, in my opinion, if you're Antonio Conte, considering the circumstances. Oh, by the way, your goalkeeper and captain wasn't there either. And again, it's not like some of these guys are coming back for the second leg. I get that. But you're going to get Højbjerg back. Again, you're going to have more time to adjust and kind of regroup with the team you have moving forward. And so I very much view this as a win for Tottenham. Doesn't mean they're going through. But particularly with AC Milan's struggles recently, yeah, you could have jumped on them and tried to put yourself in a really good position by winning on the road. But that's just not where the Spurs team is at this moment. Having just lost Bentancur, having Højbjerg suspended, you've got a team that has been really struggling, coming to your building. You win by a goal, you go to extra time, you win by 2, you're through. I don't know how Antonio Conte could ask for anything more than that. And then finally, Benfica take care of business against Club Brugge. Club Brugge do put the ball in the back of the net, tight offside, rules it out. João Mario scores from the penalty spot again. Seems like every other Champions League game, that's exactly what he does. David Neres comes on, gets the second. Could have been even more than 2. I would argue 2 is a pretty fair scoreline. Benfica or Club Brugge just didn't create anything. It's not like Benfica were world beaters going forward that looked like they could have scored 5. But they created enough chances. They took a couple of them, capitalized from the penalty spot. And I just want to give Benfica credit for showing up and doing exactly what they were supposed to. There are 3 teams who have yet to lose in the Champions League this season. One is Manchester City. One is Bayern Munich. The other is Benfica. I understand it's Club Brugge, and Club Brugge, by the way, most bizarre set of results you might find in Europe this season. With what they've done in the Champions League and what is happening domestically. Just go look at their game-by-game results and who they've played. It's fascinating. But this was clearly the worst team left. With all due respect to Club Brugge. You got a really good opportunity to get to the quarterfinals here. Club Brugge earned their spot. But that was also because, Atletico Madrid just fell apart. I have been consistent in my belief. This Benfica team is a top 15 team in the world. This Benfica team can play with anybody. This Benfica team can make the semifinals. You now have this golden opportunity to get into the quarters without much stress. Because at some point, right, you're going to need something to go your way. The more times you put yourself in difficult situations, of course, Benfica had nothing to do with the draw. But see PSG, right? The difference between winning that group and coming in second in that group is Club Brugge against Bayern Munich. Make this as easy as possible so that you can hopefully limit the amount of times that you need things to kind of go your way. And that's exactly what Benfica did. They put 2 goals up. You take care of business in the second leg, move on without any sweat, wait to see who you get, and then you kind of start this thing over because now your margin for error is much thinner. But save, right? I would have just been really, really sad. And again, maybe come Club Brugge's Mount of Furious comeback. I would have just been really sad to see this Benfica team waste this opportunity in this tie. It's the stars are kind of all aligning for him here. They got that tiebreaker 6 or 7 or whatever it was to win the group. That then got them a very advantageous draw in the round of 16. They have now taken advantage of that and put themselves in a really good position. And now they're, everything except for their second foot into the door of the quarterfinals. And you're looking at they just went toe-to-toe with PSG twice. If I'm Benfica, am I scared of Spurs or AC Milan? Am I scared of Chelsea? Now, there are certainly some other teams I don't want to play. So again, you need they're either going to have to pull a major upset or they're going to need some help to get to the semis. But there is absolutely a world where I feel very good about Benfica's chances of getting to the semifinals the way this thing has come out. So they do exactly what is expected of them, as they have continued to do all season, regardless of who's come and gone on the team. I just give them an immense amount of credit. And they're doing it in the league as well. Just game after game after game. Doesn't matter who the competition is. They are showing you. They show up every time they take the field. And they are capable of playing with anybody. That combination, there just aren't many teams in the world that have it. And Benfica is one of them. Do not sleep on these guys. They are sensational.